The small transport shuttle floated silently above the alien planet, its metal hull glowing under the distant twin suns. Captain Ryland stared out of the viewport, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and unease. He had been sent to explore this remote world, a place humans had only seen through distant satellites. The surface below was a strange mixture of glowing plants and shimmering rocks. Moving shadows flickered across the terrain as if the planet itself was alive. Ryland adjusted his seat, checking the instruments for any signs of life. The sensors showed nothing unusual, yet his instincts screamed that something was watching. He had been trained for years, faced dangers in deep space, but nothing prepared him for the quiet tension that filled the shuttle. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the cabin, signaling an incoming transmission. The message was strange, a series of melodic tones that seemed almost like a whisper. The translation system struggled to make sense of it, finally producing a single phrase, "You're expected." A chill ran down Ryland's spine. He looked at the planet below, unsure if he was ready for what awaited him. The shuttle began its descent, passing through layers of glowing mist. Strange shapes moved in the haze, too quick and smooth to be natural creatures. His heart raced, yet he tried to keep calm. After minutes that felt like hours, the shuttle landed on a flat surface that seemed almost like glass, reflecting the twin suns above. The ramp extended with a soft hiss and Ryland stepped out. The ground beneath his boots felt warm but not uncomfortable. The air was breathable, though filled with a faint sweet scent that made him feel lightheaded. He scanned the area, expecting to see something alive. Yet the place seemed empty. Then he noticed them, figures emerging from the mist, moving gracefully, almost like they were floating. They were humanoid but not human. Their skin shimmered with soft iridescent colors, and their eyes glowed faintly. Their movements were precise, deliberate and mesmerizing. One of the figures stepped forward, a female taller than a human, her presence commanding and yet strangely comforting. She wore a sleek outfit that gleamed under the light, and in her hands she held a small device that pulsed with energy. She tilted her head slightly and spoke in a voice that was calm, soft and musical. "Welcome, visitor," she said, the translation system converting her words into familiar tones. "We have been waiting for you." Ryland swallowed hard, unsure whether to step back or forward. Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. She smiled, a gesture that seemed almost too perfect. "We are the caretakers of this world," she replied. "We study, we observe, we heal, and sometimes we experiment." The last word made Ryland's stomach tighten. He wanted to run, but his legs felt heavy as if the ground itself held him in place. Another figure appeared, this one smaller and more delicate. Her eyes wide and curious, she reached out a hand, and a faint glow appeared between her fingers. "You are interesting," she said, and Ryland felt a strange warmth spreading through his body. Like a gentle pull he could not resist, his thoughts became hazy, and he realized he could not move away even if he tried. The first nurse stepped closer, her glowing device now humming softly. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "We only wish to understand you." Ryland tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. The sensation in his body grew stronger, a strange tingling moving from his chest outward. He realized that something was leaking from him, something vital, yet it did not hurt. Instead, it felt curious, almost intimate. Why is this happening?" he managed to whisper. The smaller nurse tilted her head, examining him with fascination. "You are unusual," she said. "We must see more, understand more." The larger nurse's smile widened, and she gestured for him to follow. "Come, do not resist. The process will be enlightening." Ryland hesitated, looking around for escape, but the mist had thickened, and every step back seemed to draw him closer to them. His mind raced, fear and curiosity colliding. He knew he had to understand these beings, yet part of him screamed to run. The alien nurses moved as if anticipating his thoughts, silent and graceful, guiding him toward a structure that shimmered in the distance. Its walls were translucent, showing shapes and lights moving inside. Like nothing he had ever seen, the glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Drawing him in as he stepped forward, the tingling in his body grew. The feeling of being observed, studied was overwhelming. Yet a strange trust began to form, a connection he could not explain. He was about to enter the unknown, a place where human rules did not apply, where curiosity and fear intertwined. And as the alien nurse extended her hand once more, He realized that his journey had begun, not as a conqueror or explorer, but as a subject of something far greater than himself. The mist swallowed them both, and the world outside seemed to vanish, leaving only the glowing beings, the humming structure, and the sense that nothing would ever be the same again. Ryland stepped cautiously into the glowing structure. The floor beneath him smooth and warm, almost alive. The walls shimmered with shifting colors. Flowing like liquid light, strange sounds echoed softly, like whispers carried through water. He glanced at the alien nurse who had guided him, her eyes glowing faintly, calm yet full of intent. She gestured for him to sit on a smooth bench that appeared from the floor as if it had always been there. "Relax," she said, her voice musical and soothing. "This will not hurt." Ryland wanted to resist, but a strange warmth spread through his chest, slowing his movements, making him feel unusually light. He noticed a small device hovering near the nurse's hand. It pulsed softly with light and emitted a low hum. The smaller nurse moved closer, her gaze sharp yet curious, examining him like a scientist studying a rare specimen. "Why, what are you doing?" Ryland asked, his voice trembling. The larger nurse smiled, tilting her head. "We are learning about you, your body, your energy," she said. "We only wish to understand, not harm." She waved the hovering device over his arm, and a soft glow spread across his skin. It felt warm, almost pleasant. But he noticed something strange, and he felt lighter, as if a part of him was being drawn outward. Ryland tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy. Resisting him gently, the smaller nurse leaned closer, whispering, "You are unusual. Your body is different from others we have studied." She placed her glowing hand near his chest, and he felt a tingling sensation spreading through his veins. A small amount of fluid began to leak from his body, barely visible, yet he knew it was significant. The warmth was strange, almost intimate, making him uneasy yet fascinated. He wanted to pull away, but the larger nurse's eyes seemed to hold him in place. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "This is only the first step." She pressed a button on her device, and a holographic display appeared, showing colorful shapes and lines, seemingly connected to Ryland's body. His pulse raced as he realized they were monitoring every heartbeat, every movement, every drop that leaked from him. The smaller nurse touched the glowing panel, adjusting the readings. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your body reacts differently under observation." Ryland shivered, unsure whether he should be proud or terrified. He noticed subtle changes in himself. His skin felt sensitive, his senses sharper, and the world around him seemed clearer and more vivid. Yet the feeling of being drained was undeniable, a slow pull at his core. "Why are you taking this from me?" he asked, voice wavering. The larger nurse's smile remained calm, almost comforting. "We are not taking, only observing. Understanding," she said. "Every living thing has energy, fluids, reactions. We only wish to see how yours works." Ryland tried to comprehend, but the science was beyond him. The sensation grew stronger, his body tingling, a warmth spreading through his limbs, making him dizzy. Then the smaller nurse stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter. "Interesting," she whispered. "The leak is not harmful, yet it shows patterns we cannot predict." She extended her hand, and a soft golden light flowed from her fingertips, connecting to the fluid that escaped from Ryland, forming intricate shapes in the air. The shapes danced and pulsed, almost like a heartbeat in motion, mesmerizing him. Fear and curiosity battled inside Ryland. He wanted to flee, yet he could not move. The nurse's presence was commanding, and the pulsing light drew him in. He realized that this experiment was not just physical. It was something deeper, probing his mind, his senses, his very being. "Will it hurt me?" he asked softly. The larger nurse shook her head. "Only change, only learning," she said. Time seemed to slow as the devices hovered and the nurses observed. Each moment was intense, Ryland feeling every heartbeat, every pulse of energy. His vision blurred slightly as more fluid leaked. Yet he did not collapse. Instead, he felt more aware, as if the experiment awakened something inside him. The smaller nurse tilted her head, observing him carefully, her expression a mix of curiosity and delight. Suddenly, a sharp hum echoed through the room. Brighter than before, the glowing shapes in the air began to swirl faster. Responding to the nurse's commands, Ryland's body tingled all over, a strange connection forming between him and the device. "You are remarkable," the smaller nurse said, almost in awe. "So much potential." The larger nurse smiled again, stepping back slightly, The process has only begun, she said. Ryland's mind raced, his fear growing alongside fascination. He realized that he was part of something far beyond human understanding. The experiment was not cruel, yet it was invasive, testing him in ways he could barely comprehend. And as the glowing light swirled around him, he knew one thing for certain: his life. And his body would never be the same again. Ryland's heart pounded as he tried to understand the strange sensations coursing through his body. The glowing fluids, the humming devices, the alien nurse's soft, controlling presence. It was more than he had ever imagined. He knew he had to move to escape. Before the experiment went too far, he took a careful step backward, but the floor seemed to shift slightly under his feet, guiding him toward the bench as if the room itself wanted him to stay. The larger nurse tilted her head, noticing his hesitation. "Do you wish to resist?" she asked, her voice calm yet strangely knowing. Ryland swallowed hard. "Yes," he whispered, his voice shaking. I need to get out of here." The smaller nurse's eyes widened slightly. "Intrigued, curious," she murmured. "Your determination is unusual." She gestured subtly, and the glowing devices adjusted their positions, humming louder, almost warning him. Ryland glanced around, searching for a path to freedom. The walls were smooth and shimmering, offering no clear exit. Yet he noticed faint seams in the floor, panels that might open if pressed or forced. He crouched low, moving carefully, trying to avoid the hovering devices that seemed to track his every movement. His pulse raced as he realized how much the aliens observed. Almost anticipating his thoughts, suddenly, a soft light flickered across the room, forming shapes in midair. The larger nurse's voice echoed gently. "Do not force yourself. The process is for learning." Ryland ignored her. Focusing on the seams beneath his boots, he pressed his weight on a panel, and it shifted slightly, producing a low click. His heart leaped. He had found a possible escape. The smaller nurse stepped closer, curiosity in her glowing eyes. But she did not interfere immediately. Ryland took a deep breath and pushed harder, the panel sliding open to reveal a narrow passage, dimly lit and winding downward. The air inside smelled faintly metallic, cooler than the glowing room above. He glanced back. The nurses were watching, their presence calm yet commanding. He had to move quickly, slipping into the passage. The panel slid shut behind him with a soft hiss. Hiding him from sight, the passage twisted and turned, glowing veins of light running along the walls. Ryland's mind raced, wondering where it would lead. He could hear soft hums and whispers behind him, the nurse's devices adjusting as if sensing his presence. Every step was tense, each movement bringing a mix of fear and hope. He felt the tingling in his body intensify, a reminder that the experiment was far from over. Suddenly, a low vibration shook the floor, and panels along the walls opened, revealing strange alien creatures. Small and luminous, their eyes glowed, and they moved silently, almost like guardians. Ryland froze. Unsure whether they would attack or ignore him, they observed him closely, but made no move to stop him. He edged forward, careful not to provoke them, his heart racing with every step. As he moved deeper, the passage widened, revealing a chamber filled with strange instruments and floating devices. The air hummed with energy, and the glowing lights reflected off the walls like a million stars. Ryland felt a surge of panic. Was he trapped in another part of the experiment? He looked for another exit, noticing a faint glow in the far corner. Perhaps another door, perhaps freedom. He ran toward it, the tingling in his body now almost overwhelming. A strange sensation pulled at him, as if the nurse's presence reached through the walls trying to guide him back. "You cannot escape," a soft voice whispered in his mind. Though no one was near, Ryland shook his head. Pushing the thought aside, he had to try. He dove through the glowing doorway, landing in a large chamber that felt different, more open, more alive. The floor beneath him shifted slightly as he moved. Guiding him toward a shimmering exit, he glanced back and saw shadows moving. The nurses, perhaps observing but not following. The golden glow of the walls flickered, creating illusions of movement, confusing him. He felt a strange pull in his chest, the leaking fluids intensifying, yet he pressed forward, determined to escape the experiment. Suddenly, the ground beneath him pulsed, a wave of energy sweeping through the chamber, knocking him to his knees. The smaller nurse appeared at the far end, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Interesting," she said softly. "You resist, yet you change." Ryland scrambled to his feet. ignoring the pain and the strange sensations. He had to reach the exit, he had to survive. The chamber stretched before him, walls glowing and pulsing rhythmically. Guiding him like a living maze, every step was a battle, his body resisting while his mind screamed to keep going. He reached the far end, a door shimmering faintly with blue light. His fingers touched the panel and it slid open silently, revealing a narrow corridor leading upward. Toward hope, toward freedom, Rylan didn't look back. Pushing forward through the corridor, the hums of the experiment followed him faintly, a reminder that the alien nurses had not abandoned their study. But he ran, driven by fear and determination, knowing that this was only the beginning. The first taste of freedom was close. Yet danger lurked in every shadow. And as he stepped into the corridor, leaving the glowing chamber behind, Rylan realized that escaping the experiment would be harder than he had imagined. The nurses were watching, learning, and the true challenge had only just begun. Rylan ran through the narrow corridor, his lungs burning, every step echoing off the glowing walls. The pulsing light seemed to follow him, guiding him forward and yet reminding him that the alien nurses were always near. He had escaped the first chamber, but he knew this world held more secrets than he could imagine. His mind raced, trying to understand the strange sensations in his body, the leaking fluids and the hum of the alien devices. As he turned a corner, he stumbled into a larger room, one that was calm and strangely beautiful. The walls glowed softly with shifting colors like the northern lights, and strange alien plants grew in transparent containers along the edges. Their leaves shimmered almost like they were breathing, and the air smelled sweet and clean, calming him slightly after the frantic chase. Rylan paused, catching his breath, and noticed a figure waiting for him. Not one of the nurses, but a smaller alien, her skin glowing faintly with soft blues and purples. Her eyes were wide and gentle, full of curiosity and something like sympathy. She stepped forward slowly, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "Do not fear," she said, her voice melodic but soft. "We are not all the same here." Rylan studied her cautiously, unsure if he could trust her. Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. The small alien tilted her head. "I am Lyra," she said. "I watch over those who are willing to understand." She gestured around the room. "This place is not only for experiments, it is a place of learning, of discovery." Rylan frowned, confused. "Learning? Experimenting? Which is it?" Lyra stepped closer, her glow casting patterns on the walls. "Both," she said gently. "We study, but we also guide. We wish to understand the balance of life, not only to observe, but to grow. You are part of something larger, something that cannot be understood by humans alone." Rylan felt a shiver run down his spine, the weight of her words settling in. He realized that the experiments were not random. They had purpose. A method beyond his comprehension. "Why me?" he asked, voice trembling. "I am just human." Lyra's eyes softened. "Because you are different. Because you have something inside you that reacts uniquely to our world. Our nurses, they test, they measure, they observe. But not all of us wish to harm." She gestured toward a glowing screen, showing a web of energy patterns, some bright, some dim, all connecting to points that pulsed in rhythm with Rylan's heartbeat. Rylan stepped closer, staring at the patterns. "These are me?" he whispered, his fear mingling with awe. "Yes," Lyra said softly. "Your energy, your fluids, your body itself. It interacts with our systems in ways we have never seen. You are remarkable, and that is why they are so curious." The warmth in his body pulsed again, the leaking sensation stronger yet somehow more controlled. Less threatening, Lyra moved beside him, her glowing fingers tracing shapes in the air. "You must understand," she said. "This is not about harm, it is about connection. About learning what is possible. You may fear it, yet it is part of your nature as well." Rylan's mind struggled to comprehend. Fear and fascination mixed. He wanted to resist, and yet a small part of him wanted to see, to understand, to know what he was becoming. Can I stop it?" he asked hesitantly. "No," Lyra replied. "Not entirely. But you can choose how to respond. You can fight, you can resist, or you can learn. Every choice shapes what comes next. Every reaction matters." Rylan felt a strange sense of empowerment, realizing he was not completely powerless. Yet the alien nurses were still out there, and the experiments were far from over. Suddenly a soft hum filled the room, The nurse's presence felt closer, almost tangible. Lyra's glow brightened as she spoke urgently. They are curious about you, but do not fear. You are stronger than they think. Your uniqueness can be your shield. Rylan nodded slowly, taking in the revelation. The experiment was not merely something done to him. It was a challenge, a test of body and mind, a puzzle he had to solve as he prepared to move again. Deeper into the alien structure, Lyra placed her hand gently on his shoulder. Remember, she said, curiosity is power, but knowledge is freedom. Learn what you can, resist what you must, and never lose yourself. Her words resonated through him, giving him courage. He felt the tingling in his body less threatening, more like a guide leading him toward understanding. Rylan stepped forward, leaving the calm room behind. The corridors ahead were darker, more complex, but now he understood something important. The experiments were not just about control. They were about revelation, about discovery, about testing limits. And as the glow of the corridor stretched before him, he felt a new determination. He would survive, he would learn, and he would face whatever the alien nurses had in store. The journey into the unknown had only begun, but for the first time Rylan felt a sense of purpose, a reason to face the mysterious world around him. Rylan walked through the winding corridors of the alien structure, every step echoing softly against the glowing walls. His mind replayed Lyra's words. Curiosity is power, but knowledge is freedom. He could feel the tingling in his body again, stronger now, as if the alien energy pulsing through him demanded attention. The fluid that leaked from him earlier was now glowing faintly, reacting to the environment around him. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with strange devices floating in the air. The glowing nurses appeared instantly, their eyes bright, their presence commanding. You have come far, the larger nurse said, her voice calm but full of authority. But now you must choose. Rylan froze. Unsure what she meant, the smaller nurse tilted her head, her glowing eyes curious, studying him as if expecting an answer before he could even speak. Choose? Rylan asked, his voice trembling. Choose what? The larger nurse gestured to the floating devices. Cooperate, and you will learn secrets beyond human understanding. You will gain knowledge, power, perhaps even control over your own body. Resist, and the process will continue without your guidance. You may lose more than you expect. The words struck him like lightning. His chest tightened, the warmth of the alien energy pulsing stronger than ever. Rylan's mind raced, fear and curiosity collided inside him. He could follow their guidance and gain knowledge, yet risk losing part of himself, or he could resist and try to escape, risking harm or unknown consequences. He looked around the chamber, the devices floating like stars in a dark sky, and felt their pull, a hypnotic invitation he could not ignore. The smaller nurse stepped closer, her hand glowing softly. Your choice will shape what comes next, she said, her voice calm yet urgent. We will not stop you, but the path you take will matter, every reaction, every decision. It is part of the experiment. Rylan felt the tingling energy surge again, stronger this time as if testing his resolve. He knew he could not hesitate. The moment to act had arrived. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth in his chest spread through his body. The fluids leaking from him shimmered, pulsing with alien light, almost as if they were alive. He realized that his body was responding to the energy around him, reacting to his thoughts, his fear, his determination. The choice was no longer just about action. It was about control, about mastering the strange connection forming within him. Rylan raised his hand slowly, hesitating for only a moment. Then he made his decision. He would cooperate, but on his own terms. He would learn what he could, but never surrender completely. The larger nurse's eyes glowed brightly as if approving his choice. Very well, she said, her voice calm. You have chosen wisely. But remember, knowledge comes with responsibility. The smaller nurse nodded, a faint smile on her lips. You may guide your own path, if you are strong enough. As the devices hovered closer, Rylan felt the warmth intensify, the alien energy mingling with his own. He felt sensations spreading through his body, not harmful but overwhelming, like 1,000 tiny hands touching every nerve, every muscle, every pulse of his heart. The nurses observed silently, guiding the flow, but allowing him freedom within the process. Rylan's mind expanded with new understanding, patterns of light and energy connecting in ways he could almost comprehend. He saw the flow of life through the chamber, The connections between the aliens, the devices, and his own body. It was dazzling, frightening, yet mesmerizing. The experiment was no longer just about taking. It was about revealing, about unlocking, about transformation. But as the knowledge flowed, Ryland felt the danger. The warmth that guided him could also overwhelm him. If he lost focus, if he gave in completely, he could lose control, lose himself entirely to the alien process. He clenched his fists, grounding himself, resisting the pull just enough to remain aware. To remain himself, the choice had been made, but the struggle to maintain it had only begun. The larger nurse stepped closer, placing her hand near his shoulder. "You have chosen wisely," she said softly, "but every choice has consequences. Some you cannot yet see." Ryland nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He understood now. Knowledge was power, but power was dangerous, especially when it came from beings so far beyond human understanding. As the chamber hummed with energy, Ryland took a steadying breath, his body tingling, glowing fluids pulsing with alien light. He had made his choice, he had accepted the challenge, and he knew the path ahead would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. The dangerous choice was made, and with it came both hope and fear. And as he moved deeper into the chamber, guided by the alien energy yet aware of the risks, Ryland felt the weight of the experiment settle upon him. He had chosen, but now he had to survive and master whatever came next. Ryland felt the warmth of the alien energy flowing through him. Stronger now than ever before, it was no longer just a tingling or a leak. It was a river of power pulsing inside his body, guiding him, testing him, and challenging him all at once. The glowing devices hovered around him, spinning softly, their hums blending into a rhythm that seemed almost alive. His heart raced, knowing that the experiment was entering its next phase. The larger nurse stepped closer, her eyes glowing brightly. "You are learning quickly," she said, her voice calm, almost approving. "But now you must show us what you can do." Ryland's mind sharpened, a sense of clarity cutting through the fear. He realized that the energy inside him was not only something they could observe, it was something he could control if only he focused. He raised his hands, and the glowing fluids responding to the devices pulsed outward, forming patterns in the air, shapes that seemed to mirror his thoughts. The smaller nurse stepped back, watching with curiosity. "Remarkable," she whispered. "You are beginning to understand." Ryland felt a rush of excitement, but also a warning. The energy was unpredictable, and one mistake could overwhelm him suddenly. Alarms echoed through the chamber, a low, vibrating hum that made the walls shimmer. The nurse's expressions changed slightly, alert, and the glowing devices shifted closer to Ryland, as if anticipating danger. Something was happening beyond their control, something in the structure itself. The floor trembled beneath his feet, and panels slid open, revealing shadowy forms moving quickly toward him. Ryland's pulse quickened, fear and determination colliding. He realized this was his chance, not only to test his control over the alien energy, but to turn the situation to his advantage. The shadowy forms advanced, strange creatures that glowed faintly, their eyes sharp, their movements fast and precise. He had to act quickly, focus his energy, and use the knowledge the nurses had given him. He concentrated, feeling the river of power inside him respond. The glowing fluids rose, swirling around him like a shield, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The creatures hesitated, sensing the energy, then recoiled slightly as if repelled by it. Ryland's mind sharpened. He understood. He could manipulate the energy to defend himself and even control the devices, guiding them as extensions of his will. The larger nurse observed silently, a faint smile on her lips. "Very good," she said. "You are learning not just to survive, but to master." Ryland felt a surge of confidence. Realizing he had gained an advantage, he moved forward, guiding the devices with his thoughts, forming barriers and traps that slowed the advancing creatures. Each movement felt natural, as if the alien energy had always been a part of him. The smaller nurse stepped forward cautiously, her eyes wide. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Most never reach this level." Ryland nodded, his focus intense, knowing that he could not waste this moment. The creatures advanced again, faster this time, but he anticipated their moves, manipulating the floating devices to create walls of light, turning the tide of the encounter. A pulse of energy surged from his chest, stronger than before, knocking the creatures back entirely. The chamber echoed with a hum that felt both alien and familiar. as if the structure itself recognized his control. The nurses watched silently, fascinated, and Rylan realized something incredible. He was no longer just a subject of the experiment. He was becoming a participant, an active force. He took a deep breath, controlling the energy carefully, guiding the glowing fluids to form a path through the chamber. Safe and clear, the shadowy creatures retreated, moving back into the walls and vents, and the alarm subsided, leaving only the soft hum of the devices and the pulsing glow of the chamber. Rylan's body tingled, drained yet energized, exhausted yet exhilarated. The larger nurse stepped forward, placing a hand near his shoulder. "You have done well," she said calmly. "You have passed a test they could not predict. The turning point has arrived, and your choices now matter more than ever." Rylan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The path ahead would be more dangerous, more demanding, but he had learned something vital. He could fight back. He could survive, and he could master this alien power. As the chamber's lights pulsed rhythmically, Rylan felt a new sense of determination. He had faced the experiment, faced the danger, and emerged stronger, more aware, and more capable. The turning point was not just a moment in the experiment. It was a moment in his life, a point where fear met courage, and knowledge became power. And as he stepped forward, deeper into the alien structure, guided by both the glowing energy and his newfound confidence, Rylan knew one thing: the final challenge was approaching, and he would meet it on his own terms. Rylan stepped into the final chamber, his body still humming with the alien energy. The room was enormous, filled with swirling lights, floating devices, and shapes he could barely comprehend. The walls glowed with shifting colors, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, creating a sense of being inside a living organism. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the energy surge through him. Ready to face whatever awaited, the larger nurse appeared first, her presence calm but commanding. "You have come far," she said, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "This is the last stage." Rylan's heart raced. He glanced around, noticing the smaller nurse observing from a distance, her expression curious, almost hopeful. He realized that this was the moment of choice, the ultimate test of control and courage. A soft hum filled the chamber, louder than ever before, the floating devices spinning around him in intricate patterns. Rylan could feel the alien energy responding to his thoughts, his movements, and even his fear. The larger nurse spoke again. "Now, you must decide: complete cooperation, full understanding, or resist entirely." Rylan hesitated, recalling Lyra's words about curiosity, knowledge, and freedom. The choice was more than physical. It was mental and spiritual. A challenge to his very being. He clenched his fists. Feeling the warmth and the tingling surge, his mind raced, weighing the options, and if he surrendered completely, he might gain knowledge beyond imagination, but risk losing himself. If he resisted entirely, he might escape. But at the cost of being drained, weakened, perhaps even destroyed. Rylan realized that neither path was simple, but he could create his own. A balance between the two. Focusing, he allowed the energy to flow freely through him, controlling it with every thought, every heartbeat. The glowing fluids that had leaked from him earlier rose around him, forming protective patterns, shields, and conduits, guiding him through the chamber like extensions of his own will. The larger nurse stepped back slightly, impressed, and the smaller nurse's glow brightened, signaling approval. Suddenly, the chamber shifted, the lights swirling faster, the floating devices forming walls and barriers. As if challenging him, Rylan felt the alien energy surge within, threatening to overwhelm him. Yet he stayed calm, channeling it carefully, letting his own instincts guide him. The energy obeyed him, responding to his will, bending to his control, and the floating devices aligned into a path toward the chamber's far exit. A shadow moved in the corner, the controlling entity of the experiment. Larger and more intimidating than any nurse, its glowing form radiating authority. "You have learned," it said in a voice that vibrated through Rylan's body. "But can you master yourself?" Rylan's heart pounded. The final confrontation was not about defeating the entity, it was about understanding and controlling the power within. He focused again, letting the alien energy flow in harmony with his own, the glowing fluids pulsing, shaping into shields and barriers. Then, with a deep breath, he directed a pulse outward, not to attack but to communicate, to show that he was aware, alert, and in control. The entity paused, sensing his strength, its glow pulsing with rhythm matching his heartbeat. The room felt suspended in time, waiting for the next move. Rylan stepped forward confidently, guiding the energy to open the exit. The swirling lights parted, revealing a corridor leading out to the glowing landscape of the alien planet. Sunlight spilling over shimmering rocks and strange plants. The entity's voice echoed one last time. Your journey continues. But the choice is yours, Rylan nodded. Understanding the meaning he had learned, he had resisted. And he had gained control without surrendering completely. The larger nurse stepped aside, her eyes soft, almost proud. The smaller nurse moved closer, placing her glowing hand on his shoulder briefly. You have grown, she whispered. Strong enough to survive. Strong enough to learn. Rylan smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of relief, exhaustion and triumph. He stepped toward the exit. Every pulse of energy in his body now harmonized with his mind and will. As he emerged into the alien sunlight, the cool breeze brushing against him, Rylan looked back at the glowing structure. Now calm and quiet, the experiment had ended. The challenge had been met, and yet he felt changed. Different, more aware, stronger. The alien nurses and their devices remained, observing from a distance, but their influence was no longer threatening. It was a memory, a lesson, and a source of power he could carry with him. Rylan breathed deeply, stepping fully onto the alien soil, feeling freedom and transformation at the same time. He had faced fear, curiosity, and the unknown, and emerged not broken but evolved. The journey was far from over, but he knew one thing. He could face the future with courage, knowledge, and the strange, powerful energy he had mastered. And as the twin suns glinted off the shimmering landscape, Rylan walked forward, leaving the experiment behind, yet carrying its lessons in every pulse, every step, and every beat of his heart.